budget amendment hearing, public. Oh, I just lost my thought. Can we start over again? Hearing, sorry. Can we have a roll call for
Tyler?
Here.
Jeff?
Yep.
John?
Here.
Deb?
Here.
Andrew?
Here.
Okay, and an approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And there's nobody here that I'm aware
I have
of.
not received any comments pro
Okay.
or against. And so I just wanted to remind you, this is basically those 4 lines that we approved a year ago in April to the public at our last budget hearing, saying we were not going to overspend. The maximum amount was from those dollar amounts that was published in the paper. But since we refinanced, we had the expense all at one time. Does not affect any revenue, taxes. This is just the expenditure side. And since we had to publish for the line 4, I thought I might as well go and add a little bit to the others just to make for precautionary while we're doing it. Didn't cost me much. So, and I know we had, so this is basically just a guess of expenses and for our June 30th ending budget this year.
Okay. And there are no comments, so are we able to adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. We can move on to the regular school board meeting. Gail, roll call.
Tyler?
Here.
Jeff?
Yep.
John?
Here.
Deb?
Here.
And Andrew?
Here.
Okay. And
to approve the agenda.
Can I one thing?
Yes.
This doesn't affect the agenda as far as an action item, but I did want to let the board know that CR 100 down under the construction and CCD 47 are in negotiations. We've been talking about those, and we will bring you an update on those. So not an action item, but something that you probably wanted to know.
What was the second one, Lindsay?
CCD 47, and the first one was CR 100.
one is 760 and the other is 80,000.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. I'm sorry, was that?
I have Tyler as a motion, and then I think we stopped.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We can move on, and there's nobody present for a public forum, and I don't believe anybody sent anything in. All right, I think we can move on to administrator reports. It looks like the first topic is Mike, standard-based grading.
Everyone hear me all right?
Oh yeah, Mike.
Oh yeah? Okay. So this is my first time presenting to a room of people that I can not see very well with a screen that I cannot see at all. So we're going to struggle through this, hopefully. Yeah, I'll let you know when to advance to the next slide, okay?
Got it.
All right. So basically wanted to come and visit with you guys tonight about what we currently do for grading at GMS and then propose a change for next year. And so Gail, if you'll move to that first slide there. We currently at GMS kind of do a hybrid grading system, so we do some standards-based grading and some traditional grading. Oh, okay. Somebody's moving the camera on that, Jason?
Yep. Do you see it?
Sorry. And so, you know, when we talk standards-based grading, just a little background. Some of you may be aware, some of you are new to the board, maybe you're not aware. But basically, it's just like it sounds. So it's grading, your classroom grading is based on student performance on a specific standard. And so the whole focus of the classroom is on learning targets and not so much on points. And so what we do is we get away from how much is this assignment worth, and instead the students and the teachers and the parents all know exactly what students know and can do. And that's really the focus of standards-based grading. Probably a big benefit to it is it separates out behavior. And so, for example, a student may really get math, but maybe they're just not very responsible. They don't get their work turned in on time. In a traditional system, you know, points are deducted from assignments based off of that. And, you know, so their grade is lowered. And really, their understanding of math isn't any lower. What they're really talking about is that students' responsibility isn't maybe where it needs to be. And so with standards-based grading, what we can do is we can separate those two out. And so we can give a update to parents on where they're at with their math, and then also an update on where they're at with that responsibility. And so that's a big thing, is we can separate out that academic part from the behavior part. You know, another issue with traditional grading is that scores are averaged over the course of the 9 weeks, or in our case, a trimester is 12 weeks. And what this really does is it really focuses on what students know and can do now, and so they're not penalized for their early struggles. And you'll see this in a little bit. So Gail, if you can move to that next slide. So in 2014-15, under Mr. Billings' direction, GMS moved to a hybrid system. And so when I say that, we taught and assessed on standards, but we converted it to a letter grade. And the reason we did this at the time was we felt like this was fairly early on in the standard move to standards-based grading, and we felt like maybe parents weren't ready for that, moving away from the letter grade, and so we kept the letter grade part of it, but we had to come up with this modified grading system to make it work, because we assess standards based on a 3-2-1. So 3 being they got it, 2 they're close, and then 1, you know, they're maybe quite a ways off. And so if a kid got 2 out of 3 in a traditional grading system, that's 66% or a D. And what the staff felt like at the time was that's not really representative of a D as we know it. It would probably be closer to, you know, like a B- or something. And so, Gail, if you move to that next slide, you'll see on this, on the left side is the modified grading scale that we've used since 2014. And then, of course, on the right, just for your reference, I put what a typical grade scale would be, just so you can see the differences there. And so you can see, you know, to get a 2 out of 3 is a 66%, and so that would put you at a B- in the grading scale that we've used since 2014. And so when parents see a grade report card, they see a B, and it's not the same B that we all necessarily think it is. And so, you know, I think sometimes that causes some confusion with that too. So, Gail, if you move to the next one, what I'm wanting to do next year is move to true standards-based grading. And so this would drop the letter grade, and really it would mirror what we do K-5 with report cards. And so it has a list of the skills or the content, and it would show the student's particular level of proficiency on that. This is similar, like I said, to what we already do in the district, and also similar to what a lot of other middle schools do. So over the course of the year, Mr. Beecher and I had this conversation last summer about possibly doing this. And so over the course of the year, I reached out to a lot of middle schools: Nevada, Perry, Sadell, ADM, Waukee, Ankeny, Norwalk. They all use standards-based grading. And DCG, Pella, and Bonneret are all in some stage of moving to it. And so it's something that a lot of schools are moving to, at least in our area. And so to get ready for this, the staff and I completed a book study this year over standards-based grading. I've tried to engage parents in this. I've sent out several emails over the course of the year with some articles, I think 6 or 7 different articles and videos on standards-based grading, and plan to have a parent open house after spring break, which of course, as we all know, didn't happen. So instead, I just sent them an email and said, here's what we're doing, and if you have concerns, let me know, and didn't hear of any. And so the reason that we wanted to make this move, Gail, if you move to that next slide. You know, we've been doing this for 6 years, so why change now? And we really just want to shift the focus away from letter grades and more to those specific skills and student performance. You know, we think it'll help students and parents know exactly what those kids know and can do, what's expected of them. They'll be able to know at the next grade level, you know, looking ahead what's expected. All of the instruction is tied to those grade level standards, so everyone has a better idea, and it will help with transitions. You know, our teachers can look and see right now at the 5th grade level and look at you know, the standards and see maybe how many kids weren't proficient, and that can help them you know, guide some of their instruction, and so we'll be able to do that at other grade levels as well. It also removes kind of that the teacher's a hard grader versus an easy grader from the equation, because the standard is what it is, and you have to have evidence to, you know, show that you've met that. It doesn't inflate grades with extra credit, and it doesn't put in some of those grading practices. Like a lot of you, I had your students, your children as students, and so I used to do a thing where I sent a letter home at the beginning of my class and said, if you bring this back initial, I'll give you, 5 points for your grade. And so all of you, in fact, I think, did that, and that's really not a very good grading practice. And so I've inflated grades based off of behavior and not really showing you what they know and can do. And so it gets away from a lot of those things that happen in a lot of traditional grade books. And so, Gail, if you move to the next one reason that we wanted to do that was because when you look at a letter grade, not all letter grades are equal. And so you have, in this fictitious grade book up here, you have 7 different examples of students who all have the same grade, but all took a different path to get there. And so like student 3, if you look at, they really haven't progressed over time. So they've been right around that 79%, that C range, that entire time. But then you have student 5 who started out really strong and has really fallen off. And so, they both ended up with a C, but they both don't have that same level of understanding. You have 4 who really came on strong at the end. And then you have 6 and 7 who were penalized just because they didn't get something in. So do they really have C-level understanding of the material? That's where behavior is getting mixed in there. So that's what standards-based grading is trying to correct, is trying to help correct those issues. So Gail, if you move to the next one. Again, it removes behavior from the system. So, it takes those zeros out of the equation. A math grade shows what they know and can do in math. Now, we're not going to get away from behavior. What actually we're going to do is report that out separately. And so I had a group of teachers and I that talked with a couple other schools that I mentioned before and looked at some of their documents and got some of their advantages that as they've gone along and some of the obstacles they've overcome. And we've identified a couple behaviors that we're going to report out. And so we're going to start with 2, with respect and responsibility. And so a parent will be able to see in math, for example, their math skills and content, and then also respect and responsibility, and then the same in science, the same in social studies, so on and so on. And so parents will be able to get that information. I know a lot of times that's what parents at parent-teacher conferences, for example, that's what they really want to know is what kind of person is my kid becoming. And so this will give us specific ways to address that, and we can see that, and we'll have evidence around that. And so then, Gail, if you move to that next one, really what you're going to see is, there's that traditional report card on the left, and what we're going to move to is something more like what you see on the right. And so this should really give you a sense that parents will get more information, teachers will have more information, kids will get more information, and that's really what this is all about. So with that, that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Where do you get your metrics for your behavioral standards?
Yeah, so currently we have classroom expectations, and we have very similar to what the intermediate, for example, and probably the elementary, we have majors and minors around those. And so we track those. And so if you said to me, hey, how many issues have you had with disrespect for a particular student or in a particular grade, I could pull up the spreadsheet and I could tell you all of that. So for responsibility, we already have those and been using them. I'm sorry, for respect. For responsibility, a lot of those indicators are, coming to class on time, bringing your materials with you, having your work completed on time. So that's where that work completion would come in. And so those are all things that we can quantify and be able to, sit down with parents and say, over the course of this trimester, your son had however many issues with, coming to class on time or whatever. And so the ones that we picked were ones that we could quantify with data that were similar to what we're doing now, and we felt like were things that parents really want to know. And ultimately, those are probably the 2 things we get asked the most about. Is my student respectful, and are they being responsible? And so those were the 2 that we targeted now, with the idea that we could always add more down the road.
So you guys wrote them, or who wrote them?
Well, yeah, we came up with them. So we looked at what other schools had, and we looked at what we already had, and we came up with what we felt like were the 2 most important ones. So yeah, we I guess created them ourselves.
Okay.
Hey Mike, how are you going to roll this out to the parents? Like you mentioned, you shot an email out before because we couldn't do the parent-teacher conferences. What's your
so I've sent probably 6 6 emails over the course of the year with some articles and some videos talking about it, and then of course was going to have that open house, which couldn't happen. Probably what I'll do is, I mean, that will be something that I'll continue to send out, and then when we have our back to school, if we're able to have our back to school night, of course, it would be something that I would mention then, and then can continue on in the fall. You know, parents won't really see the difference until we get to probably midterm of that first trimester. That'd be the first time where we're going to send home the behavioral standards and update on that for respect and responsibility. So that'd be the first time that they see it. Would be, you know, 6 or 7 weeks into the first trimester. So I'm just going to try to continue to keep people aware of what's going on. In my particular case, you know, the 5th grade parents coming into 6th grade won't know any different because that's, you know, what they're used to in 5th grade. And then my 8th grade parents now moving to 9th grade don't really care because they're moving on. And so it's really that 6th to 7th and that 7th to 8th grade group of parents that I've really tried to communicate with.
So Mike, just a couple, one question for you. For the kids that take high school classes while they're still in middle school, they will continue what the high school does for grades, right?
And that's the case right now. So even though we're on trimesters at the middle school, the high school classes operate on quarters and semesters now, and that will just continue. They will continue to stay with the high school grading.
Yep. And I remember we had quite a conversation about this last year, or I think maybe the beginning of this year. Now I'm not remembering well, but and you know, we're really encouraging this move, just because there is kind of really a lot of wonkiness within the grades when you're talking about a 20% swing. And I think it was confusing to parents, but I was trying to remember, and I can research this offline, but is there a policy that we have to change as a result of this? I remembered we had a policy, and I can research that if nobody knows off the top of their head, but
Mike, is there one that for the grading scale that we might have to?
There was for the grading scale, I believe, and I don't know. I think that was at your July meeting last year. I did not attend, and Mr. Beecher was communicating with me after that. And I don't know where things were left, if that was left in a policy or if that was taken out.
I know that we were trying to be proactive about it, but I'll go back and look. And if so, we'll just bring that through with the policy.
Lindsay, do we still baseline these kids? I mean, do they have like Iowa Test of Basic Skills or something nationally?
It's not called live test anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, and so they still do that. Mm-hmm. So you could really monitor how this works off of that, off of the previous years versus when you change this to see if it truly works.
Well, this isn't going to change how we teach or how kids learn. Really what I'm changing is how I'm going to report it to parents. So we've already been teaching this way for the past 6 years. What I'm really wanting to do is get away from the letter grade and give parents that more information, like I said, you know. So the instruction, I feel like, will look much the same. We've been teaching around standards now for 6 years, so that shouldn't change. What may change is as parents are more aware of those standards, maybe that will change some of the conversations with teachers, and maybe that will force teachers to just tighten up that much more because they know parents are going to know the standards and how their kid's doing, rather than, you know, just some, you know, letter grade that could look the way it looks for lots of reasons. So it may help tighten it up a little bit, absolutely.
Yeah, when I first read this, Mike, I thought it was pretty neat. I think this was forward thinking on your guys' part.
Yeah, I think it
Mike, they just brought it up. I don't know if you can see the screen or not necessarily, but the change was made to make it more to reflect the standards-based grading. So I don't know that you can take a look at it, but I don't know that we're going to need to make any switches there.
It's 505.5 R1.
Yeah, grading systems.
I mean, there will be parents who don't like this, and so I think, you know, I want you to know why we're wanting to do this. I want you to have a good understanding of that, because I'm sure there will be some who grumble about it at first, because it's different, you know, it looks different. But I will tell you, you know, a lot of those schools, Ankeny and Waukee were two that were really early in adopting this, and they had some parents that pushed back pretty hard on it, but they held the course, and I think when you talk to those middle school principals there, they'll tell you that every conversation is around student learning, and it just really makes things focused on the most important things, and it's really helped teachers and get away from some of those grading practices that maybe inflate a grade or knock down a grade, so really keeps it all about, you know, what students know and can do.
Yeah, and I actually was one of those parents who I used to give Mike a lot of crap about this. He kind of is, I've learned a lot since I started here, but I really appreciated the slide deck, Mike. I thought those examples like that made it really clear to me that really kind of the aim. And I remember Vic saying last year, I think it was Vic, that said, there isn't any college that's looking at your grade point average in 6th and 7th and 8th grade. It's high school where a grade point average matters. And so those parents that I think are maybe, I think that's another thing that we can remind parents who are maybe kind of still thinking that. But I appreciated the slide deck.
Thank you. I don't want to belabor this, but I just, probably the thing that I get most comments from parents about is our policy on allowing kids to redo or retake, and that's where Deb and I have had some good conversations about it. And what this will do is this will actually separate out so parents can see, if a kid needs multiple redos or retakes because of, a work completion issue or something, those behavior standards are where we can articulate that to parents, and so we can really show them, okay, their math is here, but the responsibility is here, and so that might be something that to target. And so by separating out, I think, Deb, we're able to really show parents, because that's really what parents want to know is, is my kid responsible? And so that we'll be able to tell them exactly where they're at based on evidence.
Yeah.
Mike, I have a question for you, and it might be beyond the scope of what we're talking about. If it is, just say it's beyond the scope of what we're talking about. So do we have a way that the people that have these things mastered can keep on going and they're not waiting, so the advanced kids can keep on moving and the kids that are struggling with concepts, or tell me how that works.
Yeah, so, that's something, John, that we're talking about differentiating the class, and that's something that, at Gilbert is something the teachers really have to do because, it's not like we have a few kids at the high end and a few kids at the low end. We have a lot of kids at the high end. The high end here is in some classes maybe the bulk of your kids. We have 40% of our kids score higher than 90% of kids around the country in certain areas. And so our teachers are already doing that work. That won't be anything that's different in terms of differentiating and trying to provide challenge to those high achieving kids. What we did not do in this 6 years ago when we moved to this is we opted not to have above proficient because the thinking at the time was that the conversations with parents will all be about, well, why didn't they get a 4, instead of a 3, and they'll be thinking 3 is bad. And what at the time the conversation as a staff was, what we want is we want all kids to be proficient, and of course we'll still provide challenge and differentiation to meet kids where they're at. But we don't want the conversation to just be around, well, why did they get a 4, and what can they do to get a 4? When really what we wanted was all kids to be at that 3 level in terms of the reporting. Now, again, that doesn't change the instruction in the classroom. We'll still handle that the way we always have. But, we wanted the conversation to be around what kids know and can do, not, well, why aren't they at a 4?
Okay, and then the portrait of a graduate's yet to come and how that would layer into this is the next conversation. Yes,
so, and we've talked about that, and so as soon as we have rubrics around that, then as we talk about those behavior things that we're going to report out, those could be some ways that we could slide that in, and so we could report to parents on, communications. Communication maybe would be more through language arts, but creativity, and have some rubrics around that, and use that as one of our behavior standards, and so they can see based on evidence of how creative the student is, where they're at with that, and so part of the reason why we held off on having a bunch of behaviors is because we knew that work was coming in the next few years. And we didn't want to have to redo things. And so we picked a few that we felt like parents would really want to know about their kids now, with the idea that we would absolutely grow that as a portrait of a graduate came online.
Yeah, well, that'll slide in there nice. You get going on that then.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So the next item is educational update, COVID-19. Yay.
Before we open it up to the administrative team, I wanted to let you know, and if you want the link, we can sure get that for you. On Friday, Ann Lebo, the director of the Department of Ed, gave us a Zoom meeting, and I have a 40-page document for the Return to Learn. If you're wanting some good reading, you can have that. And there's also, that's some support document, and then there's also basically some guidance. And today we had a Zoom meeting administratively and started talking about how we will bring this together and what this will look like. One of the things that we did have, and I maybe defer to Carrie, we did have a situation where we had a Zoom meeting with the Return to Learn Committee. Carrie, you want to update us a little bit on that?
Yeah, sorry, I had not unmuted myself. Yes, we have right now 40 members of our committee, and they range from certified staff reps in each building to we've got people from Iowa State involved that are involved in technology education. We've got our directors of technology, custodial services, food service, our nurses involved, counselors involved, because for this new Return to Learn plan, there are, I think, five areas that we're going to focus on in these small committees. And so we've got a wide range of knowledge that we're bringing to the table on this. And some of us met last week, and prior to that, I had some small group or one-on-one Skypes or Zoom sessions with some of these people too. So I think we brought some good minds to the table to do this work.
We also talked administratively, and just there were some people at our meeting that said that they had some things that they would like to share about what's going on during this time. Anyone want to volunteer for that?
No.
Maybe not.
They're raising their hands. Yeah.
So it looks like there is going to be a requirement from the department to have this information together by July 1st.
Correct.
And kind of where you left off last meeting, Andrew, there's could be potentially the scenario of required continuous learning, required not voluntary, so online. Could be we're on site, or the one that's probably most intriguing is a hybrid. And if I read this, we've got to be ready for required online learning, and we may have a plan for hybrid. So do you have any sense yet, Carrie, of what direction, or I know you're just getting the committees together, but that's like 7 weeks away, so what do you anticipate the direction we'll take?
I think that the thing about, that's a good question, Tyler. I think the thing about it is we have to be really fluid in our thinking, because we might have to start off where we're going to have to look at if we are required to social distance, what does that look like? What does that framework of social distancing look like for a district, and then what does that look like in individual buildings? So that's one thing. So maybe we can start, if we have to start out social distancing and we find out, you know, as we do this, dig into this work a little bit, our square footage does not match what social distancing equals. Okay, so then do we have to look at a blended option? And that blended option would be, you know, do we have some people some people at school, some people online, and we split that equally throughout the week? So that would be why we have, the plan is going to help us dictate where we have to go. And so when you look at the 40-page document of the support document, there's a lots of parts and pieces there that will help guide us to, okay, what happens if we have to do blended? What happens then when we go from blended to brick and mortar? And how are we going to deal with that social emotional piece for our kids and for our staff? What if we are brick and mortar and then all of a sudden we have another outbreak and we have to go completely online? We are going to be required to be very fluid, so that if we say, well, we're going to do blended and then we have to go to completely online, we're going to have to figure out how to do that pretty seamless. Because when you said earlier, we are not going to be able to do voluntary next year. They're pretty clear on that. The expectation is that we will have to be required.
So that's kind of where I wanted to get to is, I think we made the right choice for our district and all of our meetings last month on voluntary. But now by July 1st, we need to at least committed to required.
Yes.
And, you know, we had lots of conversations, appreciated all the input from the principals. But, I mean, now we need to do it. And I guess I'm asking what resources or what, and that'll be during the summer when teachers are not here. So
Well,
it seems like a pretty high hurdle right now, given the conversation we had of why we needed to be at voluntary last month.
Or 45 days away.
Right.
I think that what you're going to see, because from what you charged us with at the last board meeting was, you know, okay, let's put this online learning committee together. Well, really, what we've done is from what the guidance from the state that we're getting now, we're taking that online committee and we're turning it into our return to learn plan committee, because there's parts and pieces to that, and once again, we have to have all the same broad types of people on this committee. So that's how we're going about doing that, Tyler. And so as we put our return to learn, as we begin this work, which we just sent the form out today on what the committee makeups will look like, and we're asking those people that have very generously say they're willing to donate their time to us. We're asking them what are their top 2 committees that they feel that they bring the most to, that they would, you know, be willing to be part of, and then we're going to take that information in the next probably, you know, 2 or 3 days, and we're going to put those people on those committees. Then those committees will work simultaneously, but then we're going to bring the committee chairs together so that we're not working in silos, but as we come together, we'll be sharing that work so that we don't end up with committees doing very separate work, but we want that work to flow together. We're also going to be working, we're not going to be, we are working on the protocols of those committees so that as they're doing that work, we are collecting that information. We have a common way that we are collecting notes and expectations of those committees so that we're using common language for our framework. Did I answer that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes. We are not short on things to do in the next 6 weeks.
Well, and I just want to get the other board members' opinion on this, but really the hybrid model is the one we have to go with, because we don't know if this is start, stop. My mom's got COVID, I can't come to school. I don't have an internet connection. You know, so, you know, whether that's recorded in the classroom or, I mean, we're going to have, you know, be able to deliver that, you know, not in person, seems to me no matter what. So, I mean, I don't know if you call that hybrid, but in my own mind is we got to be able to teach in the classroom and at home in whatever the committee comes up with, but to me that's hybrid no matter what. I mean, am I thinking about that right, or does anybody see it any different?
I think when you say that, John, I think one thing for us all to think about too is, as we think about that, what that looks like, we have to put together, okay, what does that mean for students, and how are we, not only are we instructing them or, you know, providing instruction for them, but also providing that, how do you manage that? How do you work online? So I think there's lots of parts, there's just a lot of parts and pieces that each of these different groups, we have infrastructure, health and safety, curriculum and standards, social emotional behavior or well-being, and equity. So, and equity is not just about internet access. Equity is really looking at our subgroups so that we have equal access to education for all of our different subgroups.
No,
so really taking that work of all those committees and making sure we have all the parts and the pieces in place so that we know we are doing what's best for kids.
I do think like at the end of the day, and I know Carrie and I have talked about it, and others, I was at the meeting that they had, and you know, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure we're right that we are looking at a hybrid model. I think it's just, and it's a little bit, as you read through it, it's a little confusing, like from my perspective, just okay, we're required to turn in this return to learn program for online. Does that mean if we have a plan for hybrid that we also have to return it to the state, or can we work on that on our own? Like, I think it's a generally accepted that we would have a hybrid solution. Those that are, you know, there's so many different situations and scenarios that play out. It just seems like you couldn't cover it on either side, but I don't know if it's a matter of just really the nuances of the form. You know, it says hybrid is optional. Well, does that mean it's just optional to return a return to learn plan template to them about it, or you know what I mean? I don't think that's what we meant. That we were just going to do.
Just in my own mind, all the things that Carrie says, I appreciate, and I know it's got a ton of quirks in it, and there's no way to simplify it. But you know, that idea of I may be at home, I may be at school, and then I'm home again because I'm sick, or you know, they shut the county down, so now we're back in the soup again. So I just think it's going to be so fluid that it's probably not going to be as ideal as we would like for it to be.
Exactly.
And we just have to have, you know, the best model that we can come up with for the best number of kids. And then when we come to the equality issues, you know, hopefully we can get those kids into school first so that we can deliver the highest quality in person. But you know, it's going to be a big lift.
There's things I think that we have to consider, and it's true that we have 7 weeks, and I think that's for us to return the template. Of course, I don't think the work stops from what I've heard these guys talk about on the committee, that of course it keeps going throughout this, to fine tune it, but there's still things we have to think about that aren't in this template as well. You know, like I mentioned, one of my fears for a multitude of reasons is that our staff gets sick, and we have so many people gone.
Yeah,
I
I've read through that.
Substitute teaching looks like.
So for example,
online,
when you walk through
know?
that health and safety, there's a lot in there on PPE. So I think if you go through that, that's a nice template from the Department of Ed. But I'd encourage us to make sure that we're getting what we need from, you know, over and above that for Gilbert. So my opinion would be, I think it says we gotta be ready for required. So if we're ready for required and we're already good at in person, then it's, okay, what does the blend look like, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess questions I would have, and I didn't necessarily see them, but all the extracurricular, right? I mean, absolutely curricular is a #1 focus, but what about band, choir, speech, vocab, industrial arts, all those things that really take hands-on? I mean, there's
It's a good perspective.
I hope that there's some committee work or some thought given to the extracurricular as well.
Yeah, Tim is part of our committee as well, and so yeah, we are thinking of that. You're exactly right, Tyler. There is a lot more to think about than 7:45 to 3:45, or there's just a lot of parts and pieces.
Yeah.
John, you're right on though when you said about that being fluid. This is definitely a fluid situation. One of the things they talked about in the Zoom was we can go on what we know now. We don't know what we'll know in July or August, but we have to be ready for some of the things that Tyler talked about. We have to be ready for, maybe we're not going to come back. We're going to maybe come back on an alternate day basis. There's a lot of things that are available there that we have to look at. And they did say that there's flexibility once you put this in place. I think that they will also allow you to make some changes on it as you get down the road. But I think that we have to be ready for a lot of different things.
What about the funding piece of this? You know, I mean, all this is going to involve more technology. That's the way I look at it. No matter what we do here, we're going to need better and more technology. So how do we fund this? That's my just question of the board. I don't know that. But I mean, we're going to have. I mean, we've got great technology today. We're going to need a hell of a lot more, in my mind, to go to this hybrid model. We got to make it as open to. Again, best case scenario, we open up the school and yep, school's open. There's still going to be a large percentage of kids that will not be coming because their parents there's still fear and everything else. And that's best case scenario. So how can we? Again, today's fine how we're doing it today, but I think we've got to really crank it up somehow. And I don't know that from a dollar standpoint. That's my worry, because it's gonna be significant dollars in my mind, I have to put into the school to make it more open to the kids. And again, it's just my mind, but I envision video cameras in all the classrooms. You're gonna have to do it at some point. You're gonna have video cameras live streamed every single classroom for the kids that are there, yes, again, and the kids that are at home watching it. And how does that look? What does that cost? Again, I don't know if we can get there.
You know, I think, Lindsay, as I sit here and I listen to all this, I think we're all right in what we say and that we all have concern. My thing is, I know you're in charge of everything, but I would like to see a hierarchy of, if Carrie Clark's our leader, then let's show her, and then the branch is off. So if he's got a question on that, or if you've got a question on yours, you know, we can go to you, but if you're not here, we can go to somebody else if you're gone, or we can go, if we want to make a phone call about technology, you make a call. But I'd like to see a chart of how it breaks down. If Carrie Clark's the one in charge, and Vic's over here at the high school, and everybody like that, and everybody underneath, and then over here have it show the committee members, you know, so we at least got a comfort level, because I trust these guys. They've got us where we are today. So I'm not going to sit here and question whether we need what we need or anything else. I'm trusting us to get us through that time. But if we have a question, I want to know what it looks like as far as a chart goes, an org chart goes, says who's in charge of that, and we can go to, maybe we should all go to Carrie Clark, or maybe we should go to Lindsay Beecher. But we have to know that.
Sure.
I think this is just a huge lift. I mean, you know, I just think it's going to.
It's changing to everything you've done in education.
Yeah, I think the cameras in the classroom are a good idea, but why didn't we do it 10 years ago?
Yeah.
You know, so. But anyway, if we can do that, that'd be great. If we can, at least in my mind, that helps me. I don't have any doubt about that group up on the screen, you know. But we don't need to tell them how to do their job. We just need to, if we have questions, go to them.
Sure. Jason, any comments on the technology end of it? Because I know that we've been taking technology in and out. Any thoughts on some of the questions that have been asked here?
Nope. So we are, I mean, the plan was to refresh the high school Chromebooks, and that's close to 600 machines. And those are still usable by students. The ones that we're taking from the high school now, some of them are in worse shape than others, let's be honest. But I mean, a lot of those we could take and roll down into our younger grades, if that's one for everybody, if it's who needs one, whatever that is. So we have some, and that budget was already in place and planned for before, so.
So you get new ones in the high school then?
Yes, that's the rotation this year.
Wow, could be a good year for that.
Then how about, Jason, streaming from every classroom? Is that kind of bandwidth kind of available, or is that a huge thing?
Yep, so we just increased our internet by 25%. That was on the table before this whole thing happened, so. Okay. I mean, we're at a gig per second now. So, and I do have some flexibility by turning down my guest network for the kids. They won't be very happy with me, but I do have some flexibility with that.
And can't you get some temporary solutions in place too, like
Jeff,
put a truck outside if we need to,
Yep.
I like your idea, and Carrie, I just encourage you as you get these committees together to maybe make that transparent. And I encourage you, I don't know if there's enough, but make sure we've got community patrons on each one of those if possible. Just continue to get some outside input.
No, and that's a really good point, Tyler. And we want those committees to have a wide range of people, whether you're looking at building, multiple building points of view, community points of view, and yeah, I mean, I think, I've read a lot and heard a lot that this event in our history could definitely change the face of education. Do I think it's going to take us away from a brick and mortar building? No, I don't. But I do think it's going to make us look at the way we operate, and I think that's not just Gilbert. I'm just saying across the board. Education is.
I would tell you guys this from my standpoint, being on the board. I want you to analyze everything, but I want you to move it along. If we only have 7 weeks, I want to move it along. If you have 10 people in your committee and 5 of them show up, I want you to move it along. We got 7 weeks. We need to move along.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we have reached out. The people that we have reached out to are committed to this work, I think, and everybody knows what the timeline is, and, you know, that it is gonna take some man hours to do this. So, you know, at this point, I feel good on it. I feel that we are a little bit ahead of the game, just in the fact that the first step is forming this committee. We got all the information Friday afternoon, and we already have a committee. So, in that place, we are in a good spot. The committee members have, they got all this information today. And so we are, you know, we are moving forward as fast as we are getting the information from the Department of Ed. So.
And Carrie, don't be afraid to approach the foundation too. I think there's funds available there if need be, if we need to have some things sped along quickly, just from a.
I think we will.
Yeah,
I think we just have to let these committees start,
Yeah.
these subcommittees, and they're gonna, and I think in the conversations, we're gonna learn, oh my gosh, we need this and this kind of expertise from the community and this. It's gonna do it, but it's like, you can almost have too many people sometimes too.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
And
Carrie, is there any high schools that are doing the hybrid teaching already, just as a function of their normal classroom operation before COVID?
Not before. There's only 3 schools in the state of Iowa that are accredited for online learning. And the state has really, because of the continuous learning plan with this COVID crisis, they've really opened that up to what schools can do. Once the COVID crisis is over, the only schools that will be allowed or be sanctioned for online learning will be those same 3 schools. So even once this is over, if we wanted to do that, we would have to do more work. Just because of what the requirements from the state are. And you know what? You got to remember that those 3 schools, they put a lot of time and money into that, and you know, professional development opportunities for their teachers and what is best practice in that, and you know, kudos to them for that. So we're going to do all that we can do right now, but I think that we're going to learn from this. But if that's a route, you know, as we think of how could we change, how might we want to change, there would still be learning that would have to come along with that after this process. And if we wanted to go down that road, you know, so be it.
It's another conversation.
I think we'll learn more in the upcoming days.
So on the financial aspect of it, you know, any technology is public safe. Now, we can have a conversation, and we'll know more once we find out the financial impact of the state for those things. But we've also have, you know, Gilbert has been very, you know, productive in doing a lot of projects, you know, building-wise. You know, I could see where we would maybe have to refocus and may just say, okay, we need to focus on this until we know what we're dealing with, what the needs are, that basically let's not, you know, spend any money on, you know, new projects or new things until we get through this and find us. And so, you know, maybe just have to relook at our budget numbers on certain,
Shift it around.
yeah, and just shift it until we get this accomplished.
I think we're good where we're at.
You
We
know,
just need to move forward.
Okay. I do think,
Thanks, Gary.
why don't we move on to the next topic if we're okay with that. It looks like commencement plan update. Thank you, Carrie, for that update. Thank you. Is that Vic?
Yep.
Commencement, or, I'm sorry, Vic or Cindy?
All right, things are going well with commencement planning. We sent out a large document out to parents, pretty comprehensive document spelling out exactly what was going on in the ceremony. Had everything from how to pick up cap and gowns to return materials, to laying out the ceremony, included videos of how we're going to do things because we don't have access to the kids to walk them through things. So we wanted to ease the stress of what that would look like when they receive their diploma, so we recorded a video and sent that out. We're working with a production company, thanks to the support of the board, thank you, which will make things great that day. They will take care of pretty much everything related to the production of the ceremony, including the setting up of the stage, the covering of the stage, all the live streaming, the FM transmission into cars, the recording of the ceremony, the music. They will take care of all of the technical production portions of it, and then we just have to run the actual ceremony. So we have a well planned out ceremony. We have our maps sent out. Students know where they're parking. We have time set up for them to come decorate their parking spots using social distancing and responsible, there'll be responsible supervision there to make sure that they're not gathering in large groups. Right now, the biggest thing that we're all hoping for is beautiful weather. So, but even if it rains, we have a contingency plan for the rain. So I feel really good about things. I'm just looking forward to getting to the day. I'm looking forward to celebrating with our seniors. I've had a lot of great feedback from parents. So really pretty excited about the ceremony.
Awesome. Thank you, Vic.
Is there a typical, I mean, are you presenting, and are you presenting?
I think that
or
myself and Andrew are going to
Great.
speak. So we'll be reaching out to some of the folks who've done
Great.
it in the past just to make sure we cover the traditional
Good.
verbiage, you know.
Just doing closing. 45 minutes.
45 minutes reaching close.
That's half of this one.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you, Vic.
Thanks, Vic.
Next, we move on to announcements and celebrations. It feels kind of funny for me to say school board recognition,
But May is School Board Recognition Month, and in front of you, you should have a certificate for all school board members, and it says, "Thank you for your service and dedication to Iowa Public Schools," and should have your name there. So, all right.
it does.
Thank you, Libby.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Gail, on that second one, was there some communication that?
Just some informational statistics, just,
Okay.
you know, Public School Proud is also, you know, Teacher Week, Teacher Appreciation, so the ISB sent this little information out, just passed it on. So,
Good job with the signs. A little touch in the community for all the teachers.
Yeah, that's nice.
Thank you.
You might want to ask if they have anything as far as announcements.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that has any announcements to make from the admin team?
We sent out our grading information about 3 weeks ago after our last board meeting. We've started collecting grading options from students. That's going really well. We'll continue to work with students that have selected option 2 to do some remediation and work to improve grades, but we're about 95% of the way through students that have collected their grades, so we're feeling really good about where we stand with things. We had a really large chunk of kids want to choose option 2 to do some grade improvements, so our teachers are continuing to work on doing some remediation on previously learned material and providing feedback to our students and keeping them highly engaged. We're feeling really good about where grading is going. So.
Awesome. Anybody else? Okay. Board reports. Anything from that? I don't know if you've had much of that. My only comment would be that I just attended the first committee meeting for Richmond to learn, and it was pretty amazing to see all of the different folks on Zoom. And Gail Brown is there. Tyler, you know, she told me she was on it. She let you know, yeah. But so she's got that expertise. I'm very excited to hear about these folks that have different perspectives. So yeah, it'll be a busy summer. I think that was it. Okay, I think we can move on to new business. So 9.1 construction updates. So as Lindsay mentioned, we had a conversation today with Hayla. There's some discussions about CCD 47 and CR 100. So those are just kind of taken out of this, but this is informational.
And you'll have Sam and Adam.
Yep.
Via Zoom too.
Okay, awesome. Oh, I'm sorry, I kind of skipped over the Adam, the construction update. I went right to the change request.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You bet. Yep.
Sounds good. So I'll just run through the progress narrative portion of it. Athletic fields is really the big area. Everything at the athletic fields was seeded on Saturday. They finished up with some hydro mulch today. So everything down at the athletic fields is done in the respect to seeding. They did also seed around the high school today and started to spray the hydro mulch on top. They will finish hydro mulch tomorrow and then move to the middle school, and their plan is to be done at the middle school tomorrow, and all areas then will be seeded. The dugout roofs continue to be framed. Our electrical work at the athletic fields was supposed to start a week ago Monday. The crew of electricians actually were out sick and got tested for COVID-19. All of them were negative. However, there's still 1 or 2 guys that went back on Friday last week and got retested because they were still feeling ill. No results yet from those guys, but the guys that were negative with tests last week will be on site Wednesday to set the panels and pull the wires for lights and just electrical service for everything down there. The storage building, when I was on site today, Tom Berge was on site as well. He is the head guy for the contractor for the boosters that's putting up the storage building. They were measuring for anchors to be put in yet this week, and his plan is to start next week on that building erection.
Nice.
There will be a couple final pay applications that are submitted this month. So Steppy, who supplied all the greenhouse material, as well as Excel Mechanical, who was the HVAC contractor for bid issuance 3. We have forms that we have sent to them that define substantial completion that HALA has also signed. All of those will be delivered to the district. And then once those applications are approved, you hold their money for 31 days and can be paid out after 31 days. Scale, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that statute, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm sure you are with the number of projects that you guys do. If there's anything we need to talk through on that specifically, we sure can do that.
Yeah, we need to talk about that process.
Okay.
Just to make sure we have everything in order for that.
Yep. Okay, and then closeout documentation, we're probably 98% complete, with the last 2% being record drawings from all the bid package contractors. We have a good majority of them, and we're pulling those together now, and we'll submit hard copy as well as electronic files to the district when we have all of those together.
On those pay requests,
that's it for my narrative review.
On those pay requests, do you guys sign off on that as Story Construction too? Or is it just HALA and the vendors?
Yep. So Story reviews it, HALA reviews it, and then it comes to the district.
So do you sign off on it, or you just review it?
I review it, and then we sign off on, I'll say, all of the pay applications as a packet. I don't necessarily sign off each individual application. I sign off on the packet each month.
Okay.
So the HALA team reviews each one, and we go through an internal kind of vetting process of the team here. And then if we see issue with any of those particular pay apps, we call Adam up, and he makes a quick revision, and then we get that straightened out before we send it off to.
Yeah, but he works.
We check each month.
Right, I get that, but he works for us. So I mean, from my standpoint, I would like to make sure that he signs off on it before we pay it. I mean, if he works for us, I mean, I get you work for us too. You're the architect, but if he's in there, we should know that he's okay with everything going forward. That'd be my thoughts. If it was mine, that's the way I'd do it.
Yeah, I agree. Final approval of the application is by Deb and the board. So, like Sam said, we review it, Sam reviews it and signs it, and then it goes to the board for final approval.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thanks for moving it forward.
Yeah, thanks. You guys did a good job.
You bet. Yeah, it's very nice to see. It's faint green, I'll say at this time, but at least the soil has changed color and it looks green. The athletic fields actually will not get the hydro mulch because they have irrigation running 12 hours out of 24 hours a day. So in 7 to 10 days, we should see green grass coming up without a question.
All right, so any other change requests or
No.
that you want to bring up? Okay. Looks like, thank you very much, Adam. and
Thanks, guys.
Steve.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
You bet, thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the approval of the 2019-2020 certified budget amendment that Gail mentioned at the beginning.
Move approval.
No,
I'm sorry.
wait. We do have to take action on the change orders.
Those change orders were already approved.
No, change orders have not been approved.
Okay.
Move to approve
Sorry.
change orders as listed in 901A.2.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any further discussion? Okay. Those passed. Sorry about that. I got those confused. I think I've
CCD,
never
yeah,
did
Well,
that.
they're all credits anyway. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all.
You take it.
Yeah,
That's why
there's.
you said yes.
The
Jack.
change.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, so now moving on to 902, the approval of the 2019-2020 certified budget amendment.
So
So moved? Is there a
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. That amendment passed. Okay, this is 903 is a section that we are putting in. I don't know. Should we give a slight background about that?
We all read it.
You know,
We all read it.
you read it, but
Yeah.
the reason that we're doing this is just to make sure, because when the buildings were closed, we needed to make sure that we believe we're doing all the things that we need to do to notify folks about the meetings that we have. And we've even taken further steps. I think you will probably notice the digital sign. We're just going above and beyond and making sure that these are even more apparent, but it's important that we just have a ratification of those agenda items that were
So
discussed.
moved.
I think that we have to have Adam, or I'm
Okay.
sorry,
Adam.
Andrew. Sorry.
Adam,
Is
Andrew,
gonna
whatever your
read
name
a
is.
statement for us.
Due to the COVID-19 related closures and limitations on public gatherings, the board undertaken efforts to ensure transparency in its actions. Notice of the meeting continues to be posted online and on the office bulletin board. News media is notified, and the public are invited to contact Gilbert CSD office with questions. Additionally, we have recorded and broadcasted our meetings on the district's YouTube channel. In order to ensure the validity of previous board action taken during these unprecedented times, I move to ratify all action taken by the board on April 6th, April 13th, and April 23rd of 2020.
You can second.
Second.
Second. Thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any further discussion? No?
I
That
mean,
passes.
New Year.
Yeah, we're pretty fluid. If somebody wants to know something, all they just ask. I mean, we're not hiding anything.
Okay. It looks like 904 is award contract for district audit services. Gail, you have a document about that.
And John is the finance committee, so
Yeah,
I
so-
did send it to him on last week, so.
Yeah, so I visited with Gail on this, and the recommendation for the board from the Finance Committee of one, with consultation with Gail, would be to re-up with the existing firm. The rationale for that would be, it's a bit of a lift to change your audit firms, and I'd recommend to the people that are here, 3 years from now, that would be the time to switch it up. But now is not the time to make a switch. We have enough uncertainty going on that the only time I would recommend making a change would be, hey, we got everything kind of clearly in front of us, and we're hitting on all cylinders, and now we're wanting to make that change. But with where we're at, with the level of uncertainty and all the things going on, Gail's time's going to be better spent working on financial issues that we're going to need to solve as a district, rather than reorienting a new audit team.
What are we paying?
What was it? It's in that
8,400.
Yeah.
8,000 range, I
For-
think.
What was it?
Up at
The
the top,
very
up at the top right
Oh.
there.
Coin, I can't spell.
I thought we were Hogan and Hanson, no?
No, that Nolte.
Nolte, Cordman, and Johnson.
Yeah, let's stay there.
So I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I keep going out of order, sorry.
You're good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is approved. 905, approve IS roofing proposals from Central States Roofing. So this is for the old wrestling room and the locker rooms.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Well, just some clarification, because there were some other bids later, which must be something else, right? The black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blacktop.
That's for the parking lot.
For the parking lot.
That's for the
yes.
parking lot.
All black, but different heights, huh? So were Central States the only bid that we got in then?
Yep.
I didn't see any others.
No, that's it.
Okay.
We had a second.
We did.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. 906, 2020 graduating seniors list. I believe I got that up there. This is where we typically, this is a list that is presented for approval because they've met the requirements.
Vic, all the requirements have been met by these seniors?
Yes, we have maybe 3 of them that are short 1 credit, and they are working their tails off to get it done in the next 2 weeks, and I feel very confident that we will get that accomplished, and we'll have all of our graduates make the graduation requirements. We've had some staff members that have been working very hard with them behind the scenes during the closure, meeting them at parking lots, helping them do some tutoring over the phone, doing a lot of different things to try to get them to the goal line. But I feel very confident we'll have them all there by the 22nd.
Awesome.
How many are in that graduating class?
112.
Wow. Thank you.
Pretty amazing. It's going to be a lot of cars. A lot of cars to decorate.
Should carpool.
No action.
No action. Yep.
Yes, you do have to.
We do have
Oh,
to
we do?
approve it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Move to approve the graduating list. of
Second.
seniors.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wouldn't that be something? That would be a horrible thing to do.
Yeah, we
To
don't
just say
really-
no. Sorry.
Pull one out.
Well, I don't know why.
Yeah, pull one out.
That Nelson kid.
Yeah. Okay. 907, consider request for students to attend, okay, the 2020 National FFA Convention. I know that this is a yearly thing.
When they're out of state, you have to give them approval.
Right. And this is just in the event that they can go, and in the event that 50,000
We have to
kids.
assume that.
Right, and
Unless-
so this is just to be prepared.
I make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a discussion on this one. Don't we have the funds to help them go? Because they have to go out and raise money, right?
It's an activity fund,
Yeah,
so they have a
it's like field
purpose.
trips.
Their
Yeah.
purpose is a field trip, so they have a purpose, so they raise funds
Yeah.
too. It's not,
Like the field trips now are all paid for by the Education Foundation.
They're what?
The Education Foundation pays for all the field trips now.
Yeah.
So it's similar to that. It's got to be paid by outside resources.
By state law.
Yeah. But if you have the funds, you can donate to.
I make a motion, we just use the travel budget from the board members. Seems to work here lately.
Where were we? Did we have?
I second, he motioned.
Okay, that was our discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is.
Andrew, you second that?
Oh, I can't remember. I thought I did. John did or I did?
John did.
John did, sorry. I apologize.
We help
That's fine. That's
their
fine.
son.
Okay.
Got the funding pretty easy.
Okay.
Okay, 908 is the 2019-20 year-end career and tech ed, so CTE Advisory Council. They met once, and I think they present the notes for that. Is there anything needed with that, or is that just FYI?
They have to have official board approval
Of
of
the-
the committee and their notes
Okay.
and their, yep,
Okay. And I think there was,
approve the report, I guess is what
yeah,
the
did
official.
everybody get a chance to read that document?
I did, I just have one question, and Vic maybe knows, but, you know, this was from a December meeting, and then they talked about a January meeting, which wouldn't have been COVID related, but do you know if they did meet in January, or is there more to this story, or, Vic, do you have any idea?
I can take that one. actually.
Okay, Cindy, sorry.
That's okay. They did plan a late January one, and what they were waiting for and hoping for was to get in there with the next advisory council meeting with the new CTE lab, and have not only a meeting with it, but time to show people some examples of it up and running. Unfortunately, with just everything being pushed back, it wasn't quite ready, and they were, again, hoping to have a later March meeting, because it is now ready to go, and unfortunately have not been able to.
Right. Makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks.
Along with that, we also had planned an open house of that area, and so we weren't able to achieve that due to COVID-19. But the committee was instrumental in helping to plan that area, and so we had actually planned to have a special event for our CTE committee and for our foundation members and our board to come in and do a little, basically a kickoff of that area. And of course, we weren't able to do that. But hopefully, when things settle down, we can get that achieved.
Sounds good. Okay, is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes. Here's, I think, the second one maybe that we were talking
Now we're
about.
talking about on the ground.
Yeah, this is consider to or approve the intermediate school. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Middle school asphalt parking lot repair quotes.
So moved.
Second.
Second, is there any further discussion?
That's a really good price.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
Cool. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. The next item on the list is the 2020-21 school fees and hot lunch prices. And I know there's a
So on these, I just included some information. We do a summary or a survey to get, and basically the only thing we did increase was the lunch prices to keep up with the costs. Everything else, basically, we kept the same. We added a recorder for 4th grade, which they collect every year anyway, but we decided to put on here so people know, and they don't have to buy it if they have a family member that had one previously. Everything else is basically the same, other than the lunch prices increased just a little bit, but everything else is stayed the same.
I have a question, and it's not about this next year so much as it is about this year. And I mean, I'm hoping that we get to have prom coming up. But if they don't, are they refunded? Like, there's a cost for after. Are they refunded that amount? Or
We can talk about that.
Okay.
How much is it?
It's $30. Yeah.
There's a lot of, and I just have like, and again, this might not be the right time to talk about it. So. But I've also heard from a variety of parents who are talking about fall activities. These are extracurricular, and they're not listed necessarily on this list, but when there is uncertainty about a season taking place, but they're still asked to pay these fees up front, cheerleading fees, things like that. If that were to be removed and there's no season, do we know? Is that something we have to discuss about whether that will be refunded, or is that each individual sport decides?
I don't know of any individual sport fee.
I think it's cheerleading that I heard.
Cheerleading for their supplies.
Like
those must be like specific. They choose their item and then it's more of a resale. They just pay for it. So I would imagine that we would look at each individual thing, and now it's different if they purchase like something real personal, like shoes or something, but usually those things they keep.
How much is it?
Well, you're talking about sometimes $200, and they
For
don't. I don't know if they keep it.
I mean, really?
So we'd have to look at those.
I don't know. I don't know the real specifics. I'm sorry if I
The
need to do
uniforms
this,
would be the schools.
Yeah.
But then there, you think of hair things, maybe some tennis shoes or the shoes and all those specific. And if you purchase them for your specific, we really can't refund because we can't send the item back.
Yeah.
So you'd have to really look at what those fees are actually for. So it would be more of a circumstance by circumstance. We'd have to reevaluate.
And they should just contact if they have questions, contact
Yeah, we can work through those things.
Or whatever.
There'll be many of those things that we'll have to work through.
Yeah. Thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah, if it gets
Related.
touch and go, just give them their money back out of the travel budget for the board members.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so is there a motion to approve this?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? I did appreciate that you put the other districts.
Comparisons,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
Yeah,
good.
I like that.
That way you guys.
It's nice to know where we, you don't want to get out of line, you know,
Mhm.
with things, yeah. Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. Passes. We're on to the reviewing of the financial reports. Hang on, here we go.
Yeah. So the first, I was going to, the narrative, of course, you guys can read that. And as part of the narrative, the things that I look at is on the budgeting piece of it. I thought I would see a lot more savings, but then if you think about it, most bills are 30 days out. So in April, we paid for March 31st bills. So you didn't see a lot, but as we move forward and advance into the year, we're going to see more and more efficiencies. And so the first thing I noticed and popped out is the collection of property taxes. And if those are due March 31st, and then we receive them April 15th. And so as you can see, the collection is $171,000 less than what we anticipated for budget purposes, along with the commercial industrial replacement down here of 35. So that's almost $200,000 under collections. So did they just delay them? Will they be not collected? You know, I don't know. So it'll just be interesting to watch that to see what happens. Because the timeline of all this was middle of March, taxes were due the 31st. Did they just delay them?
They delayed them 2 weeks, wasn't it, John? Or they delay property taxes this year? There was a time span.
June 1st.
Is it?
15th.
Yeah.
Later.
So,
Sometime in June.
So we should find out when that is, and then wait against that.
well, and so either they'll be paid. Usually we get most of our collection in April because it's due the 31st. So I would imagine we would see higher collection throughout the months now. And then we won't actually see delinquent until another year because they're not delinquent, actually. So I just thought that was interesting. And then, so the other thing that popped in that I noticed was this general administration of that $20,683, and that one is interesting because there's not a lot, but there's two specific bills that we paid, large bills that we paid this month. And general administration is basically board expense, and the board.
It's the travel fund. No, we're getting to the bottom of this.
So we basically spent the travel fund.
I love it.
But we purchased the employee assistance program, and that was $6,400.
Yeah.
And the other thing was we had our legal services for the month was a little bit over our budget, was $8,400. So those two items together were, 64 and 84. So no wonder we were like 20,000 above our budgeted amount just with those. It was just a timing of, well, EAP was a new expense, but we thought that was came in very helpful with our employees, and so. So yeah, that truly showed up in a one-time expense item of that. So I thought that was interesting. And then going on to the other thing I wanted to review with you is not much in the PEPL. We have, just some ongoing projects, repairs, projects that we're doing. But I did want to, management fund received a dividend check of $15,791, which is our SFM is our new I'm working with a lot with unemployment, our work comp. And so that was a really nice thing to have as compared to what we had, you know, what our district, when I came into district 5 years ago, we were really working hard to reduce that. And then I added the ISB Financial Focus Data Tool in there. The one page is basically the links, the documents, and then the others is just great information of. So if you bring this one up, if you click the blue, or the pink on that one for some reason, it'll bring up the report. And then I also included just all the report in one, so you don't have to click on the links. But I have some of that information, historical information, on the website for people, on transparency, for to show comparisons. And I keep 2 years up there, so you can people can go to the website and see it too. Just some great information on comparison, comparability. John, do you have a
on the activity fund, Gail, we're 81,000 in the hole on the athletic boosters.
Yeah.
Do we got that planned?
Yeah, I talked to
Seems a little steep for the numbers I'm usually looking at in there anyway.
Yeah. So I talked to Tim about this, and he informs me that he has some money coming, obviously, because he knows that whatever the boosters don't cover, that his fund right above it is to cover it, and as you can see, that does not equal out. So he informed me that there will be some money coming from the boosters. They've had some big projects going, so they'll reimburse that. So he's aware of it, and he was going to pass that information on to the boosters. And I'm sure their meetings, you know, it's COVID, the meetings are probably not as timely as they would have been. So we'll be working to get those cleaned up by June 30th. And the bills are basically, the list of bills, very minimal because school wasn't in session, and so that'll build up. We have some tuitions that we'll be paying those will be as we're not doing a per diem. It's going to be everybody's billing 180 days. So for open enrollment, special ed tuition, it's going to be a normal year because everybody's budgeted for those. So those will be happening the next, ramping up, closing the fiscal year by June 30th. So you'll see more expenses as we go through. The administration's working on, everybody's, not sure about what's going to happen next budget year. So this budget year, they're going to use their budget money that they haven't used for this year, just because we don't know what's going to happen next year. So that's what we've been working on. So does anybody have any questions?
The nutrition fund I thought I remembered that we were going to get some reimbursement from the USDA or
nothing yet.
But that'll help towards this.
That's what we're being told. So from what I'm understanding, I'm reading that there's 3 pockets of money or buckets of money out there. The first one was we filled out a form, and it's $23,000, and that was basically for the connectivity. Like graduation, all those unforeseen cleaning products, that was $23,000. Then we have 2 more buckets coming that specifically are for our unemployment, keeping our staff on, for our staffing, and for specifically related to our grab-and-go meals. So haven't seen those monies yet, but from what I understand, I think they are supposed to be hitting the state, and then the state will be dispersing it however it's supposed to. We haven't seen specifics. The only one that we've received specifics was the $23,000. Everything else has been the big dollar amount for everybody, but how it is broken out by school district by school district. So.
Did they tell you how to spend that $23,000?
Basically, it was we were supposed to keep track of any additional expenses related to COVID-19. Was what the general. And then we just we filled it out Thursday.
Yep.
Filled it out, basically told them what we spent it on. And for us, it was pretty, $23,000 did not go very far. Between our internet, helping with
postage,
the
connectivity,
the Wi-Fi,
drive up connectivity for
the connectivity was a big ticket item.
Like what's a big ticket item?
$16,000.
Yeah, I was going to say 17. So $16,000 was connectivity And then we have additional expenses with postage and things like that. And then we had the graduation. So those are big ticket. So $23,000 is not enough, but we're still coding it because you never know if there'll be additional coming down the road. So we have new account numbers to track new expenses, COVID-19. So we'll keep tracking those expenses because at some point in time, if there's additional funds, we want to make sure that we know exactly what we spent on COVID-19 when we look back after 10 years or 12 years and, oh, COVID-19.
Yeah.
But specific to the nutrition fund, sorry, back to that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's completely out of our hands,
Right.
but that'll be the same in May, and then we'll just end up at a negative account balance at the end of the school year.
Yeah, and so what we do that, everybody is saying don't freak out about it. Most schools will have a negative balance.
Sure.
So basically, what will happen is we will have to give a short-term loan from the general fund to the nutrition, and then the nutrition will pay it back, preferably within 12 months if we can, but it's COVID-19. Everybody's like, we're not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we get those reimbursements from the CARES Act for those grab-and-goes and see how much, and we'll just go from there. But they're saying just leave it, cash flow, just move money as needed. But right now,
John made a point last time, and I thought it was good, a good point. He's good at this stuff. He made a point last time that our expenses are not going to ever be any lower than they are right now. And you made a point at that time, we should just run it as a total, because our utilities are going to be less. Our transportation costs are going to be less. We should just expense it out as a whole and just move on.
I just looked back, the line energy this month compared to a year ago is $40,000 less.
Yeah, I mean, now would be the time. Now would be is that right or not?
Well, I think you leave the marker there just so you can get it, but feel comfortably overall is not blowing this huge hole in our budget.
Right.
But I know
you also have to understand that there's specific accounting.
Oh, sure, you got to follow the accounting rules, but I'm always like, at the end of the day, you want to make sure.
Yeah, we want to pay.
We'll have to track
we're getting
it.
all the blocks.
So, and how all the expenses and everything will stay in the nutrition fund, but it's a business. So we will have to just do a short-term loan from one account to another one, but still be tracking as we go along. And as you can tell, there's a due to general fund, and those $26,508, that is for salaries and benefits. Now that will increase because I'm not reimbursing general fund.
Right.
That is, that's just ridiculous. We would have no cash flow then.
Yeah.
We just know that. We just can't do that. So.
If you want to work that hard at it, you get at it.
Any other questions for Gil? Okay. Nothing for public forums, I'm assuming, for that one either. Okay, the next items on the list of the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to pull out? Or
So moved.
you mean, okay, so we just want to leave it and just approve the consent
Yeah,
agenda?
I make a motion
Yep.
to approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda passes. Looks like next on the calendar we have June 8th is our next regular board meeting.
That's pretty quick in June.
That's pretty fast, yeah. That will be. We have graduation on the 24th, right?
Oh, I forgot that.
So that'll be.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. And I also, this is just, I don't know why I feel like I have this calendar today, but I also saw something from Tim on the 21st that they're going to have an event where they're honoring the seniors, senior athletes. Was it?
You want to say something?
Senior athletes.
Tim, you want to tell about that, the senior athletes?
Sure. We had yard signs made for each one of the seniors, and we're going to line those up about 10 feet apart down the drop-off lane on the south side of the high school. And then on May 21st from 6 to 7 p.m., people can come by, the senior and their parents are either going to stand behind the sign, or if they want to bring some lawn chairs and sit behind the sign, that's fine. Just kind of a chance for us to recognize and support those seniors.
Awesome. Okay, I don't think
We're calling it drive-through senior night.
Love it. Okay, so I guess that's it. June 8th is our next meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
A second.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.